I want to do another game now. This is called rapid fire questions. So I'm just going to throw some questions at you. Tell me what you think straight off the bat, and you can also just follow up on it and ask in
Sure.
fill some more detail. All right. I read that Blade Runner is your favorite movie. Is that
All
still the
right.
case?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I absolutely love Blade Runner.
What do you think of the sequel?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was great. It was, it definitely more measured. Also, we're in a very different era that we're, what Blade Runner was, and then what Blade Runner 2049, what you are able to gain from it. Were two different films using very similar characters. It's also, I'll have to take it back too. I'm also a Philip K. Dick fan. I really enjoyed
Mm.
his writings, and so many of his stories have been made into films, or at least been some of them even been just stolen and just used as films. And so, yes, Blade Runner still stands up there again, a Ridley Scott film, one that was a flop at the box office, but yet has kind of
Yeah.
gone on to be this cultural, cult hit, as it were. And so, yeah, it stands up. I Was the sequel as good? I mean, honestly, I find it almost a lot of my reviews lately have been if they just cut a half an hour out of that movie, it would have been great. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And so I
Yeah.
think even with that, Denny, as far as what they're able to do with it, it was a great storytelling. It was beautiful. There were so many great characters. But I think it probably could have had a healthy edit and it would have probably been even greater. But anyway, but Blade Runner still stands up for me. And even though I go back to the original, I don't necessarily go to all the director's cuts, even though I've seen most of them.
See, that's what I was going to ask because we'll talk about Ridley Scott before, and the other thing he's kind of notorious for is these director's cuts and extended cuts and
Yeah.
all this stuff, right? It's kind of almost to the point where it's laughable now. But the Blade Runner movie was definitely the first time that he kind of delved into that
Right.
territory because he didn't like the narration, right? The Harrison
He
Ford
didn't.
narration from the original. But so for yourself, the original theatrical cut, that's kind of the one that you always go to.
Oh, well, it's just like, well, because we just saw Furiosa, the Mad Max saga, right?
Yeah.
And the Roadrunner, I mean, not Roadrunner, sorry, Mad Max 2 or Road Warrior was
Yeah.
seminal for me. I mean, I still go back and I go, man, it was just such a great film. But then on top of it, it opened up my eyes to a different type of filmmaking and seeing all these different things. Same with Blade Runner. I mean, this is in the era, you got to think this is kind of thrown in the middle of the era of Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So then
Mm.
to all of a sudden have this dystopian, dark film, as well as Roy Batty, which I still think is one of the best villains ever written in movie history. Rutger Hauer was incredible. And so I would still say, yes, I go back to the theatrical release just because, oh, just go with it, man. Just back it. Back your original creation, whatever those producers, if they got involved, sorry about that. But this is what we love. This is why we loved it. And so just let us have it. But if he wants to do director's cuts, that's fine. But I still kind of
Mm.
go back and I think the original really was what grabbed me, and it still does today.
Okay, so you come to Australia in 2006, and I'm sure you've been watching lots of Australian films since then, been to a lot of screenings. So, what's your favorite Australian movie?
Oh, huh. That's interesting because I mean I really do I mean Fury Road is still one of the tops for me as far as one of my favorite films as of late. But then going back, I just reviewed the Castle because
Mm,
somebody kept asking me what if especially as an immigrant coming in, everybody kept throwing that at me, and I didn't understand it for the first 2 years. I watched it, and I'm going, I don't get this movie. Why do people think it's so funny? But then after living here for a while, I'm going because everybody uses all of the lines from this movie. I mean, that movie's still to this day. I mean, you got the vibe, it's all
hmm
about that. Um, and then, and and growing up, The Man from Snowy River was always great. But one, this is going to sound really strange, especially in the realm of what we are talking about, especially a lot of the films we've talked about. But I really, really enjoyed Ladies in Black. And I thought that
mm.
was just a phenomenal film from a great Australian director. And Bruce just did such a phenomenal job with that film. And it was different because I remember when I came here, a good friend of mine, and Ben McKecken, and he's a friend of yours too. I remember him telling me, "Well, here's an Australian film. Let me describe it for you real quick." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, it pretty much grabs your heart, throws it on the ground, stomps on it a little bit, then takes a car and runs over it a little bit, and then tries to put it back in." And so it's a it, it most Australian films tend to be gut wrenching, in so
Mm,
many ways, like Rabbit Proof Fence. I mean, it's a
yeah,
great film, but man, I mean, I don't know if I could watch it again because I mean, it's still the
yeah,
impact it has on you. Most of the films that really deal with the indigenous brothers and sisters who what they experienced and went through in so many ways are great films, but I don't know if I'd watch them over and over again. While with Fury Road, Ladies in Black, even though even The Man from Snowy River probably still goes up there as films, and I've watched The Castle. I can't tell you how many times. So yeah, these are some
yeah.
of the ones I love.
So this one's going to be an interesting one because there's been a lot of them. What do you think has been the best on-screen portrayal of Jesus in a film?
Oh yeah. Huh. Yeah, we've had this conversation. Not you and I, but I mean, people have asked me about it a lot of times as far as what you're able to see. Because funny enough, I was having this conversation with somebody about Ben-Hur the other day. I said Ben-Hur. I
Mm,
mean, Jesus didn't even get his face in the whole picture, but yet his depiction and his ministry, how it. I love the fact because unfortunately, sometimes when they portray Jesus, they just they only focus on his story, which is fine. And I totally appreciate that, but in that, they kind of lose sight of the fact that the rest of the world was still going on. I mean, there's all these things
mm,
happening. And so really to be able to see Ben-Hur and his experiences, he's kind of going through and all that's happening. And yet Jesus's story is overlaid on it quite beautifully. And so I really find that is really good. But then as far as the other Jesus films, yeah, because there have been so many. Even Mary Magdalene here recently, and
mm,
um, yeah, I would probably say because I'm really looking forward to they're coming out with the Jesus animated film, which is the use of the 1970s release that was so long ago that still has such an impact on it. But yeah, it's what we know it's so hard, Matt. Right now is The Chosen keeps coming up for me, even though that's not a
Yeah,
movie.
Jonathan
You know,
Roman. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I guess the only thing I really like about that one, opposed to most of the other Jesus portrayals, is that they really use somebody that's authentically from that background, and so you're able to kind of see it's not just kind of you know, the hair blown back and the Anglo kind of look to him, that he's actually Middle Eastern heritage
Mm.
and be able to kind of go through. And so I'm gonna probably end up going to television on that one. I'm probably saying right now, I probably have to come back to you as far as if I have another favorite. But those would probably be some of my favorite ones, though, as far as the depictions of Jesus.
You know, one that always sticks with me, yeah, I don't think a lot of people talk about, he's how Cliff Curtis portrayed Jesus in Risen, the movie that starred
Oh,
Joseph
yes.
Fiennes. I thought that was really well done. And that's a movie, like you were saying before, like the world kind of kept going on. The movie isn't necessarily about Christ, it's about, this Roman centurion. But the presence of Christ is felt throughout it. And those moments where Cliff Curtis does show up in the movie, I think are really impactful. That's one that really kind of sticks with me as well. I mean, you said The Chosen before. I thought what Jonathan has done with The Chosen has just been
Oh,
just fantastic as well.
actually, the Risen is still one that I always go back to if people want to see kind of a great portrayal, because you don't necessarily see the story of Jesus, but you know that this character that Joseph Fiennes plays would have existed, even though this is a fictitious
Yeah.
account in a way. But you know that somebody would have had to investigate the death of Jesus and rise of
Yeah.
Jesus, and so the story itself, to me, it asks all the right questions about Jesus. It asks who he is and what he was on about, why he was here, and
Mm.
did he actually rise? And so I really found that depiction, even though it wasn't necessarily, yeah, because he's only in the film very briefly as far as
20,
Jesus,
25 minutes or so. Yeah.
yeah, if that. And so overall, though, I still think that over the past few years, it's one of the best films they put out about the life of Jesus.
I think so too. Um, a controversial one. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I know
I'm
you
just going
love
to go
it.
on record because I said it several times. I've said no, just to let you
You
know.
said
So
no.
I'm I'm
Yes,
I'm, I'm in the no camp.
I know. Oh man, I love you because I've heard you speak on this one. I know exactly where you're coming from. And the thing is I am going to go down the other path. I actually argue the fact that it is a Christmas movie, mainly because of it. It is one that really kind of gets us into, and it's just a fun one to talk about as far as seeing Bruce Willis being as a Christmas film. I know it's just a action film that happened to occur in the Christmas genre. It's not necessarily specifically to Christmas itself, but it's still fun to kind of add that into the mix, especially when you see a lot of the different choices when it comes to Christmas movies. So I'm going to actually sit on the other side of the fence on that one with you and say, yes, I think the Die Hard is a
But
Christmas movie.
if you're going to go down that path, though, if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then Lethal Weapon has to be one as well, right?
That's right. I
I mean, it
love it.
has to. I
It
mean,
has to be.
there's Jingle Bells in the theme. They're having a jujitsu. Gary Busey and Mel Gibson having a jujitsu fight with Christmas lights
I
in the
mean,
background at the end. Come on, I mean, it's got to be. Then there has to.
there you
You
go.
can't take one without the other.
Anytime you can include Lethal Weapon in the conversation, I'm always for it because these
Yeah.
are ridiculous films from an era when filmmaking was a very different time, and the
Oh yeah.
hair and all the different things as far as how they were doing it. But there's just still so much fun, and that's what I enjoy about not only Die Hard but also Lethal Weapon. At least the original one was just, it was what it was. They didn't really try to make it. It's like, kind of like going back and seeing Beverly Hills Cop again. It's like, oh
Mm.
my goodness, these are just those classic kind of 80s kind of films that have their place. They have their place, that's for sure. So I'll be willing to put Lethal Weapon on the list for Christmas movies if you want me to do that.
Okay. Last one. Pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
We do it. Yep, we do it. Yep. I don't, we're like Inside Out. I don't put broccoli on pizza, but we Hawaiian pizza, we do put pineapple on our pizzas. We enjoy it. We'll admit it, and I will fess up to it that yes, we do. How about you, Matt?
I'm a stern no. I'm an advocate against it. I'm the anti pineapple on pizza party chairman. That's what I am. But it's interesting how when I
Hopefully we
asked
can
that
still be
question,
friends.
absolutely. Oh, it's interesting when I asked that question. It's like clear. It's not like, oh yeah, sometimes like a yes or no, and that's it. There's no like, yeah, sometimes maybe on something different. It's like yes or no, and
There
that's
you
it.
go. There you go.
But yeah.
Love it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.